So some time ago, last October or so, I played this indie game called Blue Fire for about 50 minutes or so. Then I forgot about it. I wonder why. So I decided to play more of it recently, and since the game had more content added into it, I think it was a good choice to play it later than sooner, especially considering I added about 14 more hours into the game. But in truth, I originally planned to have a part 2 for the first video playthrough, but just like in my Demeter video, while I was editing the second playthrough for Blue Fire, the whole time I was editing, I just wanted to play the game rather than edit watching me play, and in turn, I not only played it, but beat it and the DLC for it. So without further ado, let's talk about Blue Fire. So if you watched my first video playthrough of the game, thank you, first and foremost. And you'd also have known that I thought the game was a 3D roguelite. I was wrong. In all honesty, this game could have been a roguelite or a normal non-roguelite game that it is. Either or, the game has its own story you'll learn about if you care for it. The game was semi-story heavy, didn't have too much of a main focus for it, or at least it feels as though they tried to add a story to it while also not trying to add a story to it, so make with that as you will. But for the most part, it didn't really matter too much. It didn't stop me from liking the game. In fact, I really loved it. As a 3D Metroidvania, Hollow Knight-like game, it does good on its own, bringing a dark mood and atmosphere. Fighting isn't all the best, but it is essential to know which controls work for you. My most enjoyed time was with the platforming, and since I overthought I was stuck at the first forest temple, I ended up using some exploits to go to areas I wasn't meant to be early in the game. It made me wonder how speedrunners would go about strats for this game and what sort of exploits they've used, because I'm pretty sure I've done some things that they probably would have done unknowingly and by accident. But since I mentioned platforming, let's talk about voids. Voids are challenges that aren't fully required to complete the game, but they do let you know how platforming works, and as you progress further, they obviously get more harder. I will say I am glad that they made it so you can't die in most voids, unless they have actual health impacting assets like spikes. So don't worry about falling to your death. It might take a while, but the most you'll get out of it is having to start all the way from the beginning. Except for voids in the DLC, they added checkpoints, thankfully. Outside of voids, platforming is pretty damn good, not gonna lie. I mean, I was able to exploit my way through areas I wasn't supposed to be in, so clearly they put that on the forefront of the game. And considering the combat isn't too much the best, but hey, it definitely shined when it came down to platforming. Upon completing a void, you get an extra heart, and within voids, they'll have 30 soul orbs in each one for you to collect. I would recommend collecting all the orbs because if you get 60 of them, you can turn them in for spirit slots. Spirit slots that will help you out later in the game so you can have more abilities that you can use. And I guess since I'm talking about the spirits, I'll go in depth with them. You can either purchase or find them in the world as these dark creatures. In order to purchase the ones in stores, you must collect ores. The yellow glowing pickups you'll usually get are hitting breakable objects that you'll encounter in the world. Usually if they have a reticle over them, or if you just decide to go the path of Link and then just swipe everything you find. But the notable ones would be bundles of skulls, barrels, dark jars, and etc. You'll be able to get chances to add more ores into your inventory with a pouch upgrade, but for the most part you wouldn't worry about that early into the game. Other than that, that's all the basics of the game really. There's not too much complexity to it. With the time I played with the game, I definitely enjoyed every second, even the rage moments from the DLC and the voids. I don't want to show or talk too much about it because I'd recommend you play it for yourself, and if you want to see what the first 50 minutes has to offer, see my first video about it. It's an indie game that I thought was a roguelite 3D Hollow Knight clone. I'd say it's worth a play, even if it's not too story heavy. Just a little fun game to play if you want some platforming, a little bit of comboing into the mix. I do hope they add more onto it later, or if they do build upon a sequel, they add more that the first game lacked. I hope. Also, don't underestimate the power of emotes. They'll come in handy. Trust the man with the afro. He knows best. But until next time, as I always say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Where you may reside, hopefully you are doing good. Your friends, family, and close ones in your life alike. Thank you for watching the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I hope to see you next time. And be easy, my friends. Peace out.